Stop Physician Burnout. What to do when working harder isn't working. This is the title of a book by our guest we're going to be speaking to today. My name is Dr. Elsie Coe. I'm the founder and CEO of Lead Physician Leadership Program for Physicians and also the Chief Medical Officer of American Endovascular and Amputation Prevention. Go to our YouTube site to hear the videos and be notified of any new ones. Lead Physician is all about bringing passion, purpose, and potential back to our physicians. So today I'm going to introduce to you Dike Drummond, and let me just show you a little bit about him before I bring him on. He is a very interesting man. I've had such a good time talking about him. I want to talk to him more. He's an executive coach and founder of the happymd.com. He's a Mayo-trained family medicine physician. He's had significant, I'm going to let him tell you about it, but he's had significant amount of history of helping physicians, 3,000 physicians and over, I think, 30 to 40,000 and the tens of thousands of physicians through these lectures he gives on burnout preventions and workshops to 175 organizations in 4 to 5 different continents. Pretty incredible. So let me just bring him on. Hi, Dike. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, Dr. Coe.
What a impressive track record you have.
Well, I've been focused on one thing for about 12 years now, and that's helping doctors and organizations prevent physician burnout. So that kind of focus I used to give to my career seeing patients, but now it's been focused on burnout. So we have been, I don't know if you could say lucky or unlucky, but we've been doing this during the huge wave of burnout that is now sweeping into, I won't say through, because that implies there's another side and it's going to go away. It's like a hurricane that never leaves. So there's unfortunately plenty of need.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this space in the first place. I know you told me off camera that you yourself went through burnout.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So every doctor has a story about what brought them to the fork in the road where they had a choice to go to medical school or basically do anything else. And at that fork in the road, they chose to go to medical school. That's the place where our fate is sealed. And you're put on an assignment of how to make a life around your choice to be a doctor, to be a helper, a healer, a light worker. My choice was influenced by 2 generations of powerful women in my family. So my mother and my mother's mother went to college in the 1930s and the 1950s, University of Illinois. And each one of them said when they went off to college, they wanted to be a doctor. But they came back teachers and left a burning desire still smoldering. And I was the firstborn grandchild and a boy. So it was dreamed into me that I'd become a doctor. It wasn't belligerent or anything. They didn't say, oh, you were always going to be a doctor. They never did anything like that. But I ended up going to medical school at Mayo. And Mayo has a very small medical school. It's only 40 folks in each class. It has like 5,000 residents on campus, but it's a very small medical school. Froze my tail off in Minnesota for 4 years, did my family practice residency in the UC Davis system in the Reading program, way up at the top of the Central Valley. And then 10 years of full service private practice in Mount Vernon, Washington, which is about halfway between Seattle and Vancouver, BC, on a road called I-5 that everybody from California knows too. And so I delivered over 500 babies, was the chairperson of the executive committee of our 40 doctor multi-specialty group. I love being a doctor. I thought that being a doctor felt like it was half detective, trying to figure out what's going on, half teacher, teaching everybody about what I thought was going on in the treatment plan and how they can collaborate on that. I felt like my 3 doors at the back of the office wing that we have is like Forrest Gump's box of chocolates. You know, you never know what's behind each door.
Right.
And I crashed and burned when I was 40 in the year 2000. It came on me really sudden, and my story is very unusual. Mine's a very kinesthetic burnout. It felt like somebody was choking me every day in the office for a period of several weeks. I was eligible for a sabbatical with our group because I'd worked with them for 10 years. So I took a month off, shaved my head, didn't do any medical stuff, prayed that when I came back, that feeling would go away. But it recurred the moment I started seeing patients after the month off. And so I didn't have a lot of coping skills back then. What I did was at lunchtime on that first day back, I walked into the CEO's office and I signed my resignation and I walked away from my medical career.
Wow.
I don't recommend that as a transition strategy because it burns way too many bridges. If you're listening to me right now and you feel like you want to chuck it all, I recommend that you don't. Come visit me and let's talk. Our first phone call is always no cost, and no obligation. And I just want to show you that you almost certainly have more degrees of freedom and more choices available than walking away from something you've invested so much of your life in.
Absolutely.
I wandered in the wilderness for 10 years. And in
Mhm.
2012, I had been certified as a coach for about a decade. In 2012, I started thehappymd.com just as a platform for my own personal coaching practice. And I was the first physician coach to write articles for the internet. So all of a sudden I had 6 and 7 places on the first page of the Google search results for the term physician burnout. There was
Wow.
nobody doing this back then.
Right.
So all of a sudden I developed a big coaching practice. And when I saw patterns in what was burning people out and what was getting them better, I wrote blog posts that turned into a book. The name of your podcast episode here today is the name of my book. And then CMOs who now all of a sudden out of nowhere had 200 and 300 employee physicians started calling me and saying, hey, can you teach my doctors how to not burn out? So we built a series of trainings. And at this point, I've worked with 40,000 doctors as a trainer for 175 organizations. And we have 6 coaches at the Happy MD. And there's just a lot going on.
Yeah, that's very impressive. Thank you for doing that. That's what a story. I wanted to ask you, since you do have on your website, I noticed that you have this free book or pamphlet giveaway, 235 ways to prevent physician burnout, and a free report. Without going through 235 ways, could you take us through, those physicians who are listening, maybe some of your top 3 things to stop burnout on an individual basis?
Yeah, see, that the reason that 235 seems daunting is because I have to first teach you why that is a confusing thing for you to hear. Because here's what happens. It's a great example, by the way. We use a word in the English language very frequently. Adults, especially folks that are in careers like medicine where you're dealing with problems and illness and suffering and things like that a lot, you make the mistake of thinking that burnout's a problem. I know you're thinking burnout's a problem because you look at me and say, 235, which one? It's like, hang on a second. It's not a problem. There is no solution. And let me just run you through this thought process real quick. It's the key to understanding burnout. So let me give you the structure and the philosophy that will show you the simplest way to prevent physician burnout.
Okay, great.
First of all, we're all at risk because we live by 2 prime directives that were drilled into our subconscious in our medical education. And remember, when you decided to go to medical school, you had no idea what you were doing. You didn't know what medical school or residency was going to be like. It's a rite of passage, a continuous gauntlet. It is a survival contest. And you could have had no idea what it would be like to practice medicine. Okay. But along the way, 2 things are drilled in. One, we understand, admit to, and say out loud, the patient comes first. But let me ask you, if the patient comes first, 24/7, 365, is there any hope that you're going to have a normal life? And the answer is no, but they don't show you the off switch. So one of the tools that's really important is for me to show you how to develop your own off switch. And the second prime directive is something we never say, we just live by it. And it goes like this: never show weakness. Never do anything to make anybody think you haven't got what it takes. And this goes double down if you don't look like me. And if you can't see me right now, I'm a big old straight white guy. Born in America, English is my native language. So if you differ from me in any of those, you've had to be indestructible in ways I can't even imagine. And the stress has been higher on you to get here, right?
That's right.
So with those 2 things installed, we're at risk for burnout. Doctors' burnout rates these days are 50 to 60%. The background burnout rate in their general population is about 28. It's been constant for decades. 1 in 15 doctors will admit to thinking about suicide in the last year. That's been a constant number that I've seen for the last 10 years. But here's the question. Do you think, because this is the definition of a problem, problems have solutions. And if you apply a solution to a problem, the problem should go away. So do you think there is one thing hiding somewhere that when you discover it and apply it to your practice will make it so that you never have to worry about burnout again? And I'm sure you're thinking, that's a stupid thing to say, Dike. Of course not. It's like, okay, so stop trying to find the one thing that's going to make it so you're not burned out. Burnout's a dilemma. It's a never-ending balancing act, like a teeter-totter.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
Or as they say in England and Canada, a seesaw. And what you're looking to do is to hold a balance where your energy is in a positive level.
Right.
You can get the level, you can get the energy level that you seek, but you can't use a solution to do it. You're going to use something that starts with S, ST, STR. The word is strategy. So when I show you 235 ways to prevent burnout, what I want you to see is, wow, that's a great big smorgasbord to choose from, to pick the 3 to 5 things that I'm going to wind into my strategy to prevent my burnout because of the stresses that I have.
Right. I love that. Thank you so much. So I just kind of summarize this. You said develop your own off switch because we don't know how to turn it off. And it's not always about patient first. You got to take care of yourself so you could take care of others. And then being vulnerable is okay. I think is kind of what you're saying. You know, we are, you know, I went through that too. When I got my first leadership role as a medical director, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I didn't want anyone to know that I didn't know.
Right.
But it's okay to let people know. And it's amazing how freeing it is. Sometimes, but in general, it is freeing because a lot of people do want to help you.
Well, and what I'll say is sometimes, so for me, I sit at a website that attracts people who resonate with the words physician burnout and are looking for help. So I see struggling and desperate doctors every day from all across the country. And I can say that, yes, if you can overcome this brainwashing, this conditioning, this programming of our medical education to actually speak that you're struggling and that you need a break or you need extra support, right? And we can talk about guilt and shame and imposter syndrome and all those things that line up to stop it. But if you can say, I need a break, I need some help, I'm struggling here, and you don't get squished because the workplace is a toxic workplace, then you will be surprised about how many people are willing to help you. But a lot of times people get to the point where they can't take it anymore. And maybe they're even curled up in the fetal position, covered in their own snot and tears in the bathroom when they're supposed to be seeing patients, because I've seen that before.
Right.
And when they open up, they get crushed by the culture of the organization. Because I believe this, you're on a leadership show here. Let me just give you my thoughts on leadership. And that the thought of vulnerability and the culture that would support what you call vulnerability. And let me preface this by saying, I know I'm saying this as a big, old, straight white guy. And so these are feelings I can have that a lot of people won't resonate with. But here's what I notice. Everyone yearns to be in a place where they can communicate in an open, truthful, honest, and transparent way, and can be seen for who they are and valued for whatever they bring to the work site, right? We all yearn for that. And if you've ever been on a team where you could communicate openly, honestly, with transparency and authenticity, and people honored you for that, you remember that for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
And vulnerability means, for most people, and if you parse it, if you pick it apart, what they're talking about is, I want to be able to speak openly, truthfully, honestly, and transparently, and not feel like I'm putting myself in danger.
Yeah.
So I believe that vulnerability for the large part is, and this is where I differ a little bit with Brene Brown, right? It is a sign of a hostile culture. You are holding back being truthful and transparent because the culture hasn't tolerated it in the past. It doesn't welcome it. So I believe that the context for open, honest, truthful, transparent conversation and authenticity is the context the leader sets on the team, that it's okay to say and do those things. So one of the things that we teach people who want to become physician wellness champions, they're oftentimes starting something that's never existed in their organization. They say, what should I do first? What I say is this: in some setting, whatever it is, maybe it's a staff meeting or something, stand up, introduce yourself as the wellness champion, and then tell your story. Mm-hmm. Tell your story of your burnout, and especially the ugly part. Tell the good, tell the bad, but tell the ugly part too, because everybody will watch you and see you admit to struggle and need for support, and that you don't spontaneously combust, right? And all of a sudden they can start telling their stories and things can get really juicy. And
right. You make it easier as a leader. It always starts from the top. I agree with you. I think that, when I say it's okay, being vulnerable is okay, the context that I'm talking about is there's so many things that we don't know about the business of medicine. We know a lot of clinical stuff. We're the experts in that. But when we come out into the real world, there are things that we did not learn. And it makes us very uncomfortable because we come across from this culture, like you said, right, where we're the ones who know everything. And we have the answer.
Never show weakness.
Never show weakness. And when that burnout, in the early stages of burnout, where you can stop it and nip it in the bud, is becoming really aware of that side of you and learning how to be letting go. I'm not talking about what you're talking about, which is a whole nother issues. Like, when do you come to get help for your burnout and you're at the end of your rope, you've had enough, you want to leave. That's a whole nother thing. But I'm saying, like, even just saying, I don't really understand this leadership role. Can you help me understand this?
But notice all you're doing is asking for someone to mentor you a little bit.
Yes.
And notice how quickly that feels like vulnerability.
It does.
Where did that come from?
Exactly.
That is a trained behavior.
It is.
Because if you had ever asked for additional help in residency, especially as a petite, attractive Asian woman, you know that you would get hammered. So that's where that feeling of vulnerability comes from. So basically, in a healthcare workplace, when you're dealing with practicing physicians, it's a recovery program. We were traumatized and trained to operate in a way that we don't ask for help when it's really, really important. And that's why the quality of physician leadership is such crap around the country, is that we're not qualified to be leaders. We're qualified to lead a clinical care team where they have to wait for our orders. But that's a really bad way to lead a team.
Yep. Dike, thank you so much for spending this time. We went a little bit over, but it was so interesting and it was so valuable. I want to show everyone again, hit your website, thehappymd.com. Go there and you can get this free report on the 235 ways. And also he has the book, like he said, that the title of this conversation is based on his book, Stop Physician Burnout: What to Do When Working Harder Isn't Working. I already ordered my copy from Amazon.
Right on.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for listening. My name is Dr. Elsie Coe. If you have a topic on physician leadership, please reach out to me at info@drelsiecoe.com. And if you also need leadership training, whether you want to do it on your own or with a group or by yourself, leadphysician.org is where you go. Any last words for us, Dike? Thank you so much for this.
Yeah. Let's talk about the off switch just real quick. It's called a boundary ritual, and it's a ritual act that you do in the boundary between work and home. And it is something, it doesn't matter what it is. I'll give you some examples. But as you do this activity, what you say to yourself, and you can say it out loud, is, with this action, I'm coming all the way home. Because it's only when you've come all the way home that you can begin to recharge your energy levels. So you could take a big breath as you turn the keys to your car off in the driveway. With this action, I'm coming all the way home. You could hug the kids. You could have a cup of tea. You could weed the garden. You could take a walk. You could write in your journal. All you have to do is pick something, doesn't matter what it is, something, some action that you take in the boundary between work and home, and use that mantra: with this action, I'm coming all the way home. And if you do that, it may sound a little strange, but if you do that, you will be more home than if you didn't do that. It's very simple. It works every time you use it, and only when you use it.
Love it. Thank you so much, Dike. Until
You
next
bet.
time, thank you, everybody.